I remember growing up in church, the children in Sunday school would put together a nativity scene. And the teachers would hand out the costumes, and some of the girls wanted to be Mary and hold the baby Jesus. Some kids wanted to be an animal like a sheep or a donkey and make animal noises. Some wanted to be the shepherds or the wise men who brought the gifts. But in all of that, I don't remember any of the boys wanting to be Joseph, the husband of Mary. It seems like Joseph is often a forgotten figure in the nativity scene. Around the end of the year, as we remember Advent, we often hear about God choosing Mary to be the mother of Jesus. But God also chose Joseph to be the earthly father of Jesus. In the first chapter of the Gospel of Matthew, we learn about this man, Joseph. First, we have the genealogy, which is the family line of Jesus. 1,000 years before Jesus, God had promised David that he would have a descendant that would be the forever king who would bring a time of thriving for the people. So the long genealogy is a list of names. It's a record of God's faithfulness in keeping his promise to David. And the genealogy leads us to Joseph, a descendant of David. Joseph was qualified to be the earthly father of Jesus because of his family. But there's more about Joseph that we learn from Matthew 1. Not only do we learn about Joseph's family, but we learn about his faith. See, what stands out in the account of Joseph is his devotion to the Lord. Matthew 1:18 says that before Joseph and Mary came together, she was found to be with child by the Holy Spirit. Now, I want you to imagine being Joseph in this situation. You're excited about getting married, you're planning your wedding, and the girl to whom you're engaged comes and says, "Surprise, we're having a baby." Joseph knew the baby wasn't his. And so he had to conclude that the baby was from another man. And the way Joseph responds shows his devotion to the Lord. Verse 19 says, "And Joseph, her husband, being a righteous man and not wanting to disgrace her, planned to send her away secretly." See, Matthew tells us that Joseph was a righteous man. He lived according to the Jewish law. And the law stated that he could have a very public divorce or even have Mary stoned to death for the sin of adultery. But Joseph was also a compassionate man, and he didn't want to damage Mary's reputation. So he was planning to divorce her, but do it secretly. Both his obedience of the law and the intention to do it secretly showed him to be a righteous man. But before Joseph follows his plan, an angel comes to him in a dream, telling him that the child inside of Mary is not from another man, but from the Holy Spirit. Mary is still a virgin. Also, the angel tells Joseph not to be afraid to take Mary as his wife. Now, why would Joseph be afraid to be with Mary? Well, imagine what would happen if Mary was visibly pregnant at their wedding. Now, the custom was that the bride and groom would never be alone together before the wedding. So seeing Mary pregnant, the guests at the wedding would likely conclude that Joseph was not only alone with her, but also that they slept together. And he would be labeled as a fornicator, a dishonorable man. So suddenly, the situation wasn't about Mary's reputation anymore. It was about Joseph's reputation. By marrying her, he would forever have this shame and stigma. And this is why the angel has to tell Joseph not to be afraid. Then in verse 21, the angel tells Joseph, "You will call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins." The name Jesus comes from the Hebrew name Joshua, which means the Lord saves, Yahweh saves. We also learn in Matthew 1 about a prophecy in Isaiah 7:14 that the virgin would bear a child and he would be Emmanuel, God with us. So Joseph wakes up from his dream and does what the angel tells him. He obeys. First, he takes Mary to be his wife, sacrificing his reputation and living with the shame and stigma of a pregnant bride. He did this because he trusted the angel that the child was not from another man, and indeed conceived by the Holy Spirit. Second, he named the child. By naming the child, Joseph was adopting the baby as his own, taking responsibility for a child that wasn't his. And he didn't give the baby a family name, but the name that the angel told him, Jesus, because he trusted what the angel told him, that he would save his people from their sins. Third, we learn that Mary was still a virgin when she gave birth. Now, just consider this for a moment. Joseph was marrying a virgin, but I suspect that after they got married, he didn't want her to stay a virgin. By refraining from having sexual relations with his wife, he had to exercise self-control. This was costly, but he did this because he trusted the angel's message about the identity of this child. All of these actions show us that Joseph had great faith. He believed what God told him through the angel, that the child was not from another man, but from the Holy Spirit. At great cost to himself, he took Mary as his wife, named the child Jesus, and kept Mary a virgin until she gave birth. All of these actions show that he placed his trust in what the angel said to him. He showed his devotion to the Lord. Someone pointed out to me once that the Bible never has an account of what Joseph said. It only tells us what he did. And his actions showed us his faith and obedience. You see, he believed that the child inside of Mary was indeed Christ, the Messiah, the one who would save his people from their sins. And he acted on that faith with great cost to himself. I hope boys in the nativity scene would want to be Joseph. He was a man of great faith and devotion to the Lord. He trusted that Jesus was who the angel said he is. And his faith transformed his actions. So let me ask you a question. Do you have faith like Joseph? Do you believe that Jesus is who the angel said he is? That he's the Son of God, the Christ, the Messiah that was promised a long time ago? Do you trust that he saves his people from their sins? Do you believe that he's the forever King who will return? Because if you do trust this message, how do you respond to his invitation to trust him, follow him, and obey him? Joseph believed who Jesus is, and it transformed his actions, even doing some unthinkable things. Do you believe who Jesus is? How will your faith motivate you?